I couldn't figure his angle. Still, if I could find the answers, I knew we had a much better shot at getting a handle on the truth. This had all the makings of a long stakeout. Turns out, he wasn't in prison at all, but under house arrest. Why? Seems that he cheesed off some very powerful individuals by telling it like it is. Truth was not real popular in the ancient Roman Empire, same as today. Paul took all of it on the chin. Been there before, and he's a tough cookie, what you might call a true survivor. Being in confinement did nothing to cramp his style. After a while, I got to understand his motive in writing the letter. Paul was connected. Got friends all over the place, and he'd heard that somebody was feeding them a load of baloney. Got real anxious about it, and so he decided to set them right. Wrote them letters, and some of his trustees smuggled it off. I could see where Paul was coming from. Obviously, he knew the individuals he was writing to really well. They were staying in a burg called Colossae. If I wanted to understand the letter, I had to go there, get up real close to them, get the feel of the terrain, you could say. Another day, another stakeout. Colossae turns out to be a lively place with a good thing going in woolworking and cloth dyeing. Got the market cornered in dark red wool going by the label of Colossanum, what the well-dressed Roman wears to town. But the good people of Colossae do not just flog fancy rags. Seems that they had a lively little market going in every crackpot philosophical idea of the time. You got your Stoicists, your Epicureans, your Mysticists, your Legalists. And then there's my personal favorite, the Gnostics. Even in a time and a place of weird beliefs, the ideas these unsavory characters were flogging stood out for the sheer craziness of it all. They reckon they're too good for your average Joe. Got these truly strange ideas about bodies and spirits. Reckon your spirit stays holy while your body was free to whoop it up in the worst of down and dirty ways. Wackos, all of them. Worst of all, they go about saying they got a special airy-fairy knowledge, like some spiritual radar. If you ain't got it, and who does, then they reckon you had to listen and believe every word they spout. These con artists were running a hard-sell racket, and they were moving in on Paul's friends. As were the Judaizers, another precious bunch running around trying to get people to keep the old Jewish laws. No wonder Paul was ticked off and decided to get the facts on the table. Once I had these facts, Paul's letter to the folks at Colossae was coming nicely into focus. I knew where Paul was when he wrote it. I got a fair idea what was going through his mind. And I certainly knew who this letter was addressed to. They surely needed to be reined in and set straight. I had the first key. That takes care of the key our local PI calls the communication situation. Right here, I hit a snag. The dame's bit obviously came out of a much longer document. That I could tell. I needed to fit this piece into the right spot in the whole document. The boffs called this process the literary context. And it is the second key. Tell you the truth, in my line of work, I come across my share of letters, and it was as plain as the tramp at a black tie fundraiser that this piece wasn't the whole letter that Paul wrote. Any third grader can tell you that a letter's got a beginning, a middle, and an ending. All I had was a bit of what looked like the middle of a letter. That was no good. It's like a cartoon strip. If you only got the middle panel, you got nothing. For once, I had an informant pointing me in the right direction. But context is more than the little bit in front of your piece and the little bit after it. The bit fits into a bigger bit that fits into a bigger bit that... You get the idea. Until you get the big picture, the pieces were beginning to fit. I now knew what kind of document it was that Paul wrote. I knew where it fits into the letter. I had the second key, the one called literary context. My second key was a good fit. The snippet was in good old English. But it turns out that Paul wrote exclusively in very, very old Greek. Take it from me, you want to really understand something somebody wrote, you gotta go to the language he wrote it in. That would be the third key. The only Greek words I knew were ouzo, baklava, and telesavalis. I desperately needed a translation of Paul's letter. Well, turned out to be easy. Way, way too easy. Yeah, there's translations available. Many, many translations. Would have been nice if they all spoke out of the same mouth, but they don't, and you gotta tread carefully. Or else prepare for a crushing disappointment. I had to figure another way, and there was only one. I had to learn ancient Greek. Learning a new language may seem straightforward. Toddlers all over the world do it every day. But ancient Greek is not a spoken language anymore. You don't see any babies speaking it these days. Now I know why. Take the English verb to loosen. The Greek word is one of the easiest verbs to learn, luo. But even then, want to know how many versions there are of this word? Loads of them. And I'm not yanking your chain. Impossible to learn Paul's type of Greek? No, but it takes a lot of doing. Of course, if a man's got to do what a man's got to do. And if he happened to have his hands on the experimental Linguatron automatic language inducer, the third key, original language, is the most difficult one to get. Takes a lot of guts, and a healthy obsession is not a bad thing either. I was getting somewhere. I knew who wrote to who for what purpose. I knew what type of document it was and how it fits together. And I had Greek. One key remained. Call it text analysis, call it scriptural dissection, call it semantic discourse analysis, the way we communication situational literary contextual Greek-speaking gumshoes do. Call it what you want, it was time for me to go straight to the text, to open it up.